it was clear from the onset of the DCEU that, or the DCU, that DC wanted to build their own version of a cinematic universe like MCU. But rather than walk before you fly, because I can't even call it running at this point. Some people could say that, they ran and then tried to fly, but they didn't even walk. That was the problem when it came to the DC. They weren't willing to put in the work to build the movies and the stories. They had no actual plan. They wanted to put out anything. Now, with the MCU, there was a plan going forward. They knew that they eventually wanted to build up to the Infinity Saga and do that. You weren't getting that in the DC movies. It was just anything, anywhere, anyhow. You had Man of Steel started off first, then it just jumped into Batman v Superman, then it just jumped in to Justice League. It was really stupid. Had they built these movies over a period of time, they could have now wrapped up their cinematic universe maybe about 2 years ago, possibly, and they could have learned from what MCU may have done wrong and do something good. But they didn't do that. They wanted to create whatever they wanted to and just were hoping that, everybody would love it despite it sucking crap. But now we get some news that, all those people who were saying that DC was trying to run before they could walk were actually very true. Man of Steel writer David Goyer reveals his initial reaction to Warner Brothers' desperate plans for a DC cinematic universe. Let's not run before we walk. This article is courtesy of Bounding Into Comics. Getting to it, Man of Steel almost had a sequel, but it led to Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, instead, and launched the shared DC extended universe. The rest was history and a lesson in chaos. Yeah, absolute chaos. But then again, like I said, when it comes to Man of Steel, they wanted to do Man of Steel 2. Okay, want to do Man of Steel 2. But when it comes to actual Man of Steel, you have to ask yourself at the end of the movie, where was that movie really going? That was kind of the problem. Because they had a very chaotic thing and they didn't know what they were doing. Now, if they had done a Man of Steel 2, would I have watched it? Yes, I would have watched it. I wanted to see exactly what would have happened with it. But again, it was just pure chaos and they had no idea what they were doing. Let's continue on. Everything happened so quickly that it was fairly obvious Warner Brothers was trying to catch up with Marvel minus a substantial plan. Let me read that again. It was fairly obvious Warner Brothers was trying to catch up with Marvel minus a substantial plan. This is what I have been saying. They had no actual plan for what they were doing. There was nothing to say, well, okay, this is going to lead up to something. There is some unifying factor that moves these stories along. No. They just wanted to catch up to the MCU. They had no idea what they were going to do. If they just throw crap at the wall and see what sticks, that will work. Because they have a big red S on the chest, that will work. Because it has a bat symbol and lives in the shadows, that will work. Yes, we have a brunette who comes from an island of hot warrior women, that will work. And we're just hoping that, these things just stick, but you were not getting any kind of actual evidence to say anything. The writer of Man of Steel, David Goyer, recently explained on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast with Josh Horowitz via Variety that the average person outside his bubble didn't know the half of it. This is what you had to say. I know the pressure we were getting from Warner Brothers, which was, we need our MCU, we need our MCU. And I was like, let's not run before we walk. If only they had listened. That's sound advice, but whoever was in charge wasn't around long enough to take it. Continues on. The other thing that was difficult at the time was there was this revolving door of executives at Warner Brothers and DC. Every 18 months, someone new would come in. you were just getting whiplash at it. Every new person was like, we're going to go bigger. Yeah, because when you have no substantial input in anything, people were coming into Warner Bros. And going out almost the same time. The company was in trouble. They were in debt. If they had brought in somebody who had said, listen, let's stick to the stories in the comics. Let's build a universe. Let's work with that. They could have built themselves back up. But that wasn't happening. They were bringing in people who only input was, let's make it bigger than the MCU. Let's make it bigger than the MCU. And what did we get? Some dark, gritty crap that nobody liked. I said before, one of my biggest problems with Man of Steel, it was just too dark. Superman is supposed to be a brightly lit something about it, but no, just wanted things dark. I mean, you look, no, if you go back at the MCU and you look at Captain America Winter Soldier, which was a really damn good movie, or Captain America Civil War, all of that was bright and bright. You could see the fighting, you could see the action, the stories, everything. Why was everything in the DCEU so dark? I don't know. But all they want was just bigger, and have no plan whatsoever. Look at how dark this scene looks. Oh boy. Goya continued. I remember at one point, the person running Warner Brothers at the time had this release that pitched the next 20 movies over next 10 years. But none of them had been written yet. It was crazy how much architecture was being built on air. That is not how you build a house. Quite right. The most important aspect when you're building a house is laying a foundation. If you do not have a foundation, everything is going to fall down. You lay out a plan for 20 movies over the next 10 years. But you have absolutely no idea what these movies are supposed to be, what they're supposed to be about, how you're supposed to build them, nothing, because you have no plan going in. Now keep in mind, the plans, the stories, everything that you need are already in the comics and have been written for you there. You could take that and work with it. That's what the MCU did. That's what made them so successful. Yes, they took certain liberties here and there. But for the most part, everything came from the Infinity Saga and from the Ultimate Universe. They built on that. Was DC doing that? No. Again, look at Man of Steel. What was the point of that story? Batman v Superman. They tried to mash up Dark Knight Returns, Death of Superman, all that was like, what in God's name is this even supposed to be? Then you did the Wonder Woman movie. Yes, it made a lot of money, but you know, you were like, come on, Steve was going to die regardless of what happened. So she really left the island for nothing. Because she left the island to kill the God of War, only to find out he wasn't actually doing anything, he was feeding off of the war that was already happening. Then you follow that up with Wonder Woman 1984, a god-awful, terrible aspect of a movie. What was your plan? What were you actually building to? Nobody knows. But the stories are all there. You just don't want to actually tell them. That was a major problem with the MCU, with the DCEU, sorry. They go on. The house managed to stand for a decade through several regimes and creative forces building and shingling it in their image. That process started with Joss Whedon and Justice League, and it continued as WB wavered between his soft reboot and letting Zack Snyder complete his trilogy. It wouldn't come to an end until this past year when James Gunn declared a restart. Joss Whedon's version of Justice League was just terrible. That's really terrible. I still consider Zack Snyder's thing to be the only Justice League. But again, it doesn't change the fact it wasn't dark and gritty and you built up to something that wasn't making any kind of sense. You could have just created a story and built it. I said it before, I say again, there is no reason DC should be behind Marvel when it comes to anything. You couldn't do that. I mean, there was a time DC's animated movies and stuff was so good, it was beating the pants off of Marvel. Now, you're just getting garbage. You're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on movies like Blue Beetle that make no sense. Other than to just stroke the director's ego. Man of Steel 2 was in development on and off during the whole fiasco, and Gunn stepped in with his vision and a recasting just as the sequel seemed to have a chance. It's too late now for Henry Cavill because of that, but Goyer agrees with Horowitz that they should have simply gone ahead with Part 2, and that wouldn't have been a bad idea based on what Cosmic Book News says. The site's intel claims Man of Steel 2 would have led to an extended universe anyway, as films were proposed, including Green Lantern 2. Well, that first Green Lantern movie that they did was terrible, so I don't know. I don't know they would have done that better. With the intention of building to a Justice League adventure, Batman, though, was to remain a separate franchise, much like now under Matt Reeves' guidance. Okay, so you have Matt Reeves' Batman, which is going on and has certain things happening and all of this. Okay. The problem with it is that you want to build a cinematic universe. That doesn't mean that you can't still tell the story with whatever with Matt Reeves, Batman, all that kind of thing. You could do that. But if you want to build a cinematic universe, you need the Trinity when it comes to DC. You need Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. And when you have it that only Batman movies make any kind of profit for WB, for Warner Bros., for anything, that is saying something, because they are good stories, fantastic stories that can be told, that could make all these heroes really amazing, but you can't do that because you just don't know how to translate it well onto the big screen. In an even other twist, the actor favored to play the big screen's next Batman and take over for Christian Bale was Tyler Hoechlin. So the guy who's currently playing Superman on Superman and Lois would have actually taken over as Batman. And most people would have known him from his work on MTV's Teen Wolf. That's who they had lined up to take over as Batman, even though he's now playing Superman on Superman and Lois. So it's even kind of weird. I don't know if maybe he would have been a terrible Batman or anything like that. I can't say. It's possible he would have been a very good Batman with a good story. Okay. But again, that doesn't change the fact, because you have when it comes to people who have played Superman, you have Henry Cavill who played Superman, right? And Henry Cavill is not a bad actor, but he was just given a very not so good script. That's what the problem was. So unless you're willing to make the work actually work for it, it was never going to get any better. So like I've said before, and I'll have to say again, I'm sure, DC went in there with no plan whatsoever. We're hoping that whatever crap they threw at the wall was just going to stick with fans. It didn't work. And the entire DCEU was falling apart. And now we have to wait for James Gunn and his reboot to see what's going to happen there. But that's not looking and shape up to be so well with the kind of report that we're getting coming out. But I remain optimistic. You never know. We might get something really good out of it. You know your thoughts on this in the comments. If you have a different opinion, I'd love to hear it. If you like the video, try to hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell whenever I put out a new video. And I shall see you all next time. Take care.